At the Belgian Grand Prix, Ferrari brought a piece of technology to Spa-Francorchamps that had already forced the FIA to take a closer look at the 2026 rulebook. Team principal Frédéric Vasseur approved the introduction of the Macarena EVO rear wing, an evolution of the rotating wing concept Ferrari first introduced during pre-season testing in Bahrain. Unlike a conventional DRS flap that simply opens a gap, the Macarena concept rotates the aerodynamic profile to dramatically change its drag and downforce characteristics when the car enters low drag mode. The system exists within the 2026 active aerodynamics regulations, which replaced the old DRS concept with driver-selectable aerodynamic modes. Ferrari developed the EVO version specifically for low downforce circuits such as Spa, where reducing drag along the Kemmel Straight can be worth enormous amounts of lap time. At the same time, Ferrari had to maintain enough aerodynamic stability for corners such as Eau Rouge, Ridillon, and Blanchiment, but Ferrari's innovation became even more significant after Red Bull suffered two serious failures with its own rotating rear-wing system. During qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen crashed heavily at Turn 9 while pushing for a place near the front of the grid. Red Bull later identified a rear-wing problem that resulted in a sudden loss of rear downforce. Verstappen described the incident as an uncontrollable high-speed spin after losing rear-end grip. 1 week later, the same basic concept produced another frightening moment at the British Grand Prix. Verstappen was running third and fighting for a podium when his rear wing failed again at Stowe. The resulting loss of downforce sent him off the circuit and triggered a late safety car. Verstappen's reaction made the seriousness of the situation impossible to ignore. He said the problem was super dangerous, explaining that he had been lucky to escape serious injury in both Austria and Britain that immediately turned the Macarena wing from an interesting technical innovation into one of the biggest safety stories of the 2026 season. The FIA subsequently entered discussions with both Ferrari and Red Bull over their rotating rear wing designs. Ferrari had not experienced the same failures as Red Bull, but the governing body wanted to make sure that every active-aero system met the required safety standards, and that is where the story became much bigger than one rear wing. Red Bull's technical problems have become part of a much wider crisis surrounding Max Verstappen's future. Verstappen remains under contract with Red Bull, but the team's difficult 2026 campaign has kept speculation about his future alive. Performance-related clauses in his contract have become a major talking point, while reports continue to suggest that his position in the championship could influence his ability to leave before the end of the agreement. The most obvious alternative continues to be McLaren. But this is where the situation becomes complicated. McLaren already has Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and there is no confirmed Verstappen agreement with the team. Former drivers and F1 figures continue to debate whether McLaren would even want to disrupt its current lineup to bring in Verstappen. At the same time, Red Bull has one major argument in its favor: its own power unit project. Former Haas team principal Günther Steiner has argued that Red Bull's move toward its own power unit could become a significant advantage when convincing Verstappen to stay. The team may have struggled with performance and reliability during the first half of 2026, but the long-term potential of Red Bull's new engine project could completely change the picture. So, for now, the Verstappen to McLaren story remains speculation rather than a confirmed transfer. But the pressure on Red Bull is real. And while Verstappen's future remains uncertain, another team has just made a very different decision about its own future. Ferrari is doubling down on Lewis Hamilton. After a difficult beginning to his Ferrari career, Hamilton has rebuilt his momentum during the 2026 season. His victory at the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix was a major turning point, and Ferrari now believes the second half of the season gives it a genuine opportunity to challenge for more wins. The latest development is significant. Reports on August 14 said Ferrari is preparing an all-new chassis for Hamilton for the upcoming Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. The move is part of Ferrari's aggressive second-half development push as the team attempts to close the gap to Mercedes. This changes the meaning of Ferrari's earlier commitment to its driver lineup. Charles Leclerc remains locked into Ferrari for the coming seasons, while Hamilton continues to be the team's other lead driver. Instead of preparing for an immediate driver change, Ferrari is investing heavily in making its current pairing work. Ferrari is also continuing to focus heavily on development as it attempts to turn its strong chassis performance into a more consistent championship challenge. Recent reporting has highlighted how differently Ferrari has approached the 2026 development race compared with its rivals, but Ferrari's push has created a new problem for Mercedes. Mercedes entered the summer period with the strongest overall package, but Ferrari's recent progress has made the championship fight much more complicated. Toto Wolff has already acknowledged that Ferrari is expected to remain a strong competitor for the rest of the season, meaning Mercedes cannot simply assume its early advantage will be enough. Mercedes therefore has to respond with its own development program. The W17 has been one of the strongest cars of the new 2026 regulations, but the team knows that Ferrari and McLaren are capable of closing the gap when the development direction is right. That means the second half of the season is turning into a technical development war rather than simply a battle between drivers. Ferrari has Hamilton and Leclerc pushing forward. McLaren has shown that its development program can bring it into the fight. Mercedes has to protect its advantage with the W17. And Red Bull is still trying to understand why its revolutionary aerodynamic concept created such a serious reliability problem that brings the story back to the Macarena wing. What originally looked like one of the smartest aerodynamic ideas of the new 2026 regulations has become a symbol of the risk involved in Formula One's new active-aero era. Ferrari appears to have gained performance from the concept without suffering the same failures that affected Red Bull. Red Bull, meanwhile, has had to investigate its own system after two high-speed incidents involving Verstappen. The FIA's continued involvement means the story is not simply about which team has the fastest wing anymore. It is about whether these new aerodynamic systems can deliver performance without compromising safety, and while the top teams fight over performance, another major story has emerged at the newest team on the grid. Cadillac has made a major leadership change during its debut Formula One season. On August 12, Cadillac replaced founding team principal Graham Lowdon with Marcin Budkowski. Budkowski brings extensive Formula One experience from Ferrari, McLaren, the FIA and Renault Alpine, giving Cadillac a team principal with a strong technical background. Cadillac is still searching for its first points of the 2026 season, so the leadership change is more than a simple personnel story. It shows that the new team wants to accelerate its development and become competitive as quickly as possible. So as Formula One moves toward the Dutch Grand Prix in the second half of the season, the grid is entering a completely different phase. Ferrari is attacking with Hamilton and Leclerc. Mercedes is trying to protect its advantage with the W17. McLaren remains a major force in the championship battle. Red Bull is trying to solve its reliability problems while also convincing Verstappen that its long-term project is worth staying for. And the FIA is watching the new active-aero technology more closely than ever. The biggest question is no longer simply who has the fastest car. It is who can win the development war without making a mistake that changes the entire championship. And with the Dutch Grand Prix approaching, Ferrari's latest development push, Hamilton's new chassis story, Mercedes' response, Red Bull's Verstappen problem and the FIA's scrutiny of active aerodynamics could make the second half of the 2026 season even more explosive than the first.